It's really nice to see some friends, colleagues and friends for many years. Usually I would say it gives me great pleasure to present to you. But what I can say today is that I'm very sad that I'm to present to you the research title, Quality of Life, excuse me, and Emotional Well-Being for Families of Children with Severe Developmental Disabilities during Wartime. The study is a study that is conducted by Drs. Yael Karmi-Wiesel, Dr. Sagit Lev, and Dr. Nomi Vroblov. We're working as very close partners. They're from the School of Social Work in Bar-Ilan University. And myself from Betty the Shapiro. Some of you have been to Betty the Shapiro, but I will just share with you that Betty the Shapiro is an NGO, Israel's pioneering leader and innovation in the field of disabilities, developing and providing life-changing services and exporting best practices for a more inclusive society around the globe. Betty Shapiro's model is practice, research, policy, and training. We have two centers, one in Ra'anana, north of Tel Aviv, and one in Kalansoa, which is an Arab Muslim central city. In a second, I'm trying to move the, sorry. So this is Betty Shapiro's slide. Although Israel is a focus of the international news and of social media, as well as other forms and platforms of expression, many have no idea where Israel is located on the globe, not to mention understanding the events and unfortunate conflict in the Middle East. So you can see this little arrow here, and this is Israel, and you can see where we are situated. Okay, so that Israel is compared to the other nations surrounding us, and its southern and northern border is where we have been attacked on the 7th of October.
Yes.
On the 7th of October, the state of Israel faced a brutal reality when it was invaded on its southern western border on Shabbos, at 6:30 a.m., which was also a Jewish high holiday. Many people were visiting family members from different areas of the country. So while more people were still in bed, the terror attack by thousands of Hamas Iran-supported terrorists massacred, tortured, burned, butchered 1,400 children, adults, and elderly. 253 people, children from babies, were abducted. Among them individuals with disabilities as well as people with chronic illness conditions, of which today 112 are back, traumatized and hopefully recovering from the torture, sexual assaults, and cruelty. 44 have been killed or murdered in captivity, and 134 are still in captivity. Of the murdered and captive are Jews, Muslims, Christians, and Buddhists. Hundreds of thousands of men and women were drafted to the army. Among them also are Arab soldiers, Muslims and Christians. Of course, some are parents or family members of children with disabilities.
Okay.
Somebody is talking. Israel has been attacked by more than 14,000 rockets and missiles from Gaza, which is still ongoing. Hezbollah, an Iran-supported terror organization, joined attacking Israel from the Lebanese border, which is ongoing as well. Over 200,000 Israeli residents were evacuated and displaced from their homes. That too includes Arabs and Jews and Christians. Personally, I live in Tel Aviv, and we had tens of missiles explode in our city. People with disabilities, like all population, and most so, are very negatively affected by this reality. I dedicate my presentation to all children and people with disabilities who are murdered, killed, injured, traumatized on all sides of the borders, Israel, Gaza, and Lebanon. In particular, I dedicate to the 70-year-old Ruth Barretts with severe IDD who loved music and dancing. And the father, Eric, took her to a nature party, and dancing. And two, Noya Dan, a 12-year-old girl with autism who was murdered with her grandmother in bed. And finally, Tariq Kipnis, who last Saturday was supposed to celebrate his 66th birthday. He was murdered with his wife and with Paul, his Filipino caregiver. I knew Tariq. Okay, so the research objective, I'm sorry, Ivan, can you mute? I have this noise that is somebody has an open
Yes,
mic.
could you please all mute your volumes?
Okay. Our research objective was to examine the quality of life and the emotional well-being of parents of children with disabilities during the war, and to learn about the needs, challenges, personal, family, and community resources during wartime. To our knowledge, no study of this sort was conducted in the area of disability during wartime. What does the literature say? Not much. Disasters are defined in research literature as significant negative events resulting from human or natural activity, nature activity, which pose a threat to human life, disrupt normal life patterns, disturb social order, and result in loss of regular resources and support systems. The main types of disaster are natural disasters such as storms, wildfires, earthquakes, global-scale pandemics, and man-made disasters, including the situation of terror and war. War is a disaster that threatens human life, disrupts daily routines, breaks down social order, causes loss of resources and support systems. It leads to fear, uncertainty, lack of control, depression, anxiety, widespread psychological distress, and potential long-term consequences. For people with disabilities, regression in legislation has been observed and in policy achievement, which has exacerbated discrimination and exclusion, increased negative attitudes towards disability as well as over-reliance on institutional care, reduced activity and autonomy for individuals with disabilities. Children with disabilities and their parents are more vulnerable to disasters. Families often have limited awareness and preparedness for disasters. There are increased challenges in accessing essential services during emergencies. Limited and inadequate resources are allocated to their evacuation, protection, and rehabilitation after the disaster. As a result, there is exacerbation of health, development, and psychological problems for long term. Article 11 of the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities specifically addresses the vulnerability of persons with disabilities in times of war and humanitarian emergencies. The article requires states parties to the convention to take specific measures to protect persons with disabilities in these times. Okay, so the research utilized mixed methods to comprehensively examine the impact of war and terrorism on the emotional well-being of caregivers, parents in this case, and the quality of life of the families with children. These were children from birth, few months, up to 21 years old with disabilities. We use the criteria where they're recognized by our Social Security, what's called the 100% disability criteria. And what I'm going to present is preliminary findings only of the quantitative analysis findings. And I have to say we have a lot of information, and certainly the qualitative aspect is very, very rich, and we give a lot of important information. The questionnaires were distributed to service organizations, social network, through acquaintances, professionals, parent groups, mailing lists, and it sort of snowballed methods for forwarding the questionnaire link. And of course, you can imagine that while it was sort of the period of the beginning of the war, it was very, very difficult. And of course, most of them were not available or even interested in answering anything. The parents who participated responded to an online questionnaire using an anonymous link, and the questionnaire were distributed in Hebrew and in Arabic. Okay, I think one second, it's a quick one. Oops. I have to go to this. Okay, so the instruments we use were the mental health inventory short form. It's a questionnaire which consists of 5 items. The second questionnaire is a family quality of life survey, which I'm sure most of you know, and Ivan and I were among its writers in 2008 and 2006. It examines 9 key domains: health, economics, family relationships, support from others, support from disability services, values, education and career preparation, leisure, and community relationships. And it's measured on a 6-point scale, 6 domains. For this study, the questionnaire was shortened, and all the domains were examined in 2 dimensions: the importance of each domain and the degree of its attainment. Both the mental health index and the family quality of life address 2 points in time. We've asked them before the 7th of October, the terror attack, and after. So in a way, it's a pre-war and during the war periods. Okay, so the characteristics, you can see that we had 408 parents answer the questionnaires. The characteristics were, oops, I just have to move this. Children were mostly boys. Average age was 9, from all age ranges, from age 1 to 21. Most children are diagnosed with the autistic spectrum disorder, 58%. Characteristics of the parents are mostly mothers, mostly secular, Jewish. 10% were Arabs. It's important for me to say that there was no significant difference between the Arab and the Jewish responses in the groups. They were mostly married with academic education and average income and above. Half of the families lived in the Central District of Israel. Others were in other districts, with 11% of them were in the southern city, which was evacuated. And great effort was placed to try and get diverse families, not from the center of Israel. And it was, as I said before, very, very difficult. Okay, so of course now my mouse decided that it's not going to cooperate. One second, I'm sorry. There always has to be some technical. Great. Okay, one second. I'm going to use my gymnastics. Okay. Page down. Okay, so in terms of the findings, 1 second, it's up here. So you can see the mental health index, and we can see that the mental health questionnaire, that between the pre-war and the war period, the average of reduced in 28.4% the mental health that the parents reported between the beginning of the war and while it's still going on. What was interesting is that we compared to see whether there was a difference in the mental health of the parents, whether between the age groups of the kids, the amount of support the child needed, or the severity of the disability. There was no difference. So all of them, the decrease was very, very significant. Okay, in terms of family quality of life, so it is best defined, which I think is really by Zuna, Brown and Brown, which corresponds very well, of course, with the family quality of life survey. For the most part, families consider their lives to be happy and fulfilling in all members, healthy, have a safe place to live, have a stable income, enjoy their lives together, have opportunities to learn and improve, benefit from their community supports and resources, and experience fulfilling social relationships with others. So findings in terms of, oh, I'm sorry. So this is the measure for those, I assume most of you know it. These are the 9 domains, as I shared before, and these are the 6 dimensions, and we chose importance, as we said, attainment, where attainment for us was the quality of life, actually a measure. So, as you can see, all domains of quality of life very significantly decreased when we compare before and after the war began. What is interesting, the most prominent domains which declined were the leisure and the education, work, career. These were actually the 2 who decreased most drastically from all the other domains. But as I said, all of them decreased very significantly. And now I'm going to present to you something that we develop, if we'll say, this a form of a variable, which will certainly have to be examined. And actually, Ivan and the rest who are in the business of this measure, I would really be interested to discuss. In the current study, a variable called the family quality of life, GAP, we called it, was developed that refers to the disparity between the importance and the attainment dimensions for each domain. It's a disparity between the parent perception of the importance of each domain and the parent's perception of its attainment. The family quality of life gap variable is calculated at 2 points in time. Okay, you can see here the time before the war and the time past the war. So the pink here is a disparity between the 2 dimensions, attainment and importance, before the war. Here, the disparity is between the 2 dimensions while the war is going on. And we're looking at the gap between these 2 disparities, which we called it the gap. So it's a variable that is calculated at 2 points of time. Out of the 8 domains, as you can see, all of them were significant, except the values, which is very interesting, and this will be very important to think of what this means. So I'm dancing here because, and the highest gap is in 3 domains: the leisure domain, the education, work, career domain, and here also came the disability supports from services domain. The gap may indicate areas that require urgent attention in order to improve family quality of life. So I will soon to conclude the major findings. You see a significant decline in emotional well-being of parents of children with disabilities, close to 30% on average since the outbreak of the war. Parents report a decline in all quality of life domains, especially leisure, work, career, and support from services, and a significant increase in personal disparity, which relates to the gap between the importance of each domain and its attainment, was present in all domains except for values. You were here, oops, sorry. I'm going up, sorry, wrong direction. So at this point, our recommendations are that there's a need to have readily available emergency plans, dedicated intervention and support programs for families during wartime in cooperation with various professional bodies, raising awareness of the unique needs of families of children with disabilities among decision makers and professionals in terms during the wartime, and allocating dedicated resources to support these families There is a need for further research to better understand the long-term effects of the war on children with disabilities and their families, and the feasibility of checking the feasibility of using personal disparity index as an effective tool for identifying and responding to families in need. Finally, what I would say is that Benjamin Franklin in 1783 said that there's never a good war or a bad peace. And I remember saying it's really unfortunate that it's more than 200 years since he said it, and our leaders have not been able to internalize it. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Donna. That was that was really interesting. I'm particularly interested in your analysis of the gap there, because when you have high importance, things are very important to you, but low attainment, that signified an area of need and an area where we need to give some attention. And when you find that gap already increasing so much during wartime, it's particularly concerning, of course. Would you like to, would you be able to stop sharing now?
That's exactly. Yeah. I am. 1 second.
I think this would be on view options.
Yeah, no, I know. I just have to, since
Yeah, I know.
in a second. Here I'm stopping. Here I am.
Okay.
No, because of this mouse. Anyway.
Okay, great. We have time for a couple of questions. If anyone would like to do that, I'll try to get everybody on. I'm on gallery view, so if you would like to pose a question for Donna or make a comment, you could use a hand up or put it in chat. While we're waiting, Donna, I wonder if you could tell us when you carried out the study, the second part of that during the war.
Yeah, that's a good question, really. It began, the terror attack was on 7th of October, and I have to say, several days afterwards, the four of us began talking, really feeling that we also must do something. And it's important for us also to say that we are part of it. In other words, we have also experienced a lot of difficulties, pain, and so on. So we actually started writing the proposal several days after it began, and there was really it's an Olympic. I think we should get a medal for this, because the ethics committee of the university approved it also quite quickly. So we did a pilot. What's important for you to say in terms of the instruments and so forth, we spoke to parents and we developed, the measures. We also wanted to assure that they are reliable and so forth. So we had not a focus groups, but we interviewed parents and we did pilots. And we actually started collecting data on the 5th of November. So it was just about a month after this began. And the data was collected for about 6 weeks, till a little over, till about the 20th of December, which is a very different time than now in many ways. But yeah, so it was really very fresh, if I would say. And if I can relate, for example, to Ukraine, which I've been in touch also with people there and their reports and so, but there's really no study of this sort. And we didn't find anything about really studying families. There's stuff about people with disabilities and so forth, but this is really, and we will follow this up. Of course, we have more information, more data to analyze, but also we would like to see how this is really going, if I'm sure it's going to have what effects systematically and so forth.
Yeah, we have a question in chat which says, are the full results of your research available digitally or published anywhere yet?
Soon they're going to be published next month in an Israeli journal, but we're working on it. And anybody who's interested, certainly be in touch. And we hope that it will be published soon. Yes, and also any other information, we would, certainly the presentation, and I would be happy to share. All of us would be.
Okay, thanks. This is just one little thing. We have about 1 minute left. I wonder if you would be able to give us an example of how this affects one family that you know?
Well, we first of all, the Betty Shapiro, we immediately went into emergency state. We'll say, as I said, many of the families were evacuated from the south. Some have experienced the very direct implications, whether losing family members or viewing and seeing horrible things and so forth. And so they were evacuated up to the center of Israel, as well as we had families from the north who evacuated. And by the way, the Israeli north part of Israel, about 80% people, 80,000 people evacuated because we are being attacked constantly from Lebanon. And they approached us. We did really quite a campaign of being available for families and children with disabilities for all services. And many came for emotional, psychological support. Also, families who have children with disabilities or people with disabilities themselves. A lot of the services, of course, they couldn't get in terms of the allied health professionals, children who needed physical therapy, occupational therapy, etc. So, and of course, it's under different circumstances. I mean, in some ways, we call it a collective trauma in a sense that we've all experienced in different intensities. So the families also, when they were evacuated, they evacuated to, let's say, hotel rooms. So their kids with disabilities or without disabilities, 4 or 5 members of family in a hotel room for a long period of time. So there are a lot of, really, there's a lot that is involved that, as you say, you don't think of until you're in that situation. And this is definitely something that we are going to address. And or like, I want to say that in our situation, certainly, we really hope that this is going to end soon for all of us. And we hope that it'll never happen again. But the fact that the people with disabilities, especially children, are transparent, because in the priority list of emergencies and addressing, I don't think it's only war necessarily, but they disappear. And one of our roles with this research also, and certainly our organization and the people at the university, is to have a strong voice and data, which is very important.
Mm-hmm. Thanks. There's an interesting question in the chat. It refers to the decline in quality of life. We would expect under the circumstances that such a decline in quality of life would occur for all people.
Right.
So the question is, did you find that it's, or do you have a sense that it's more for people with disabilities, or would it parallel the general decline in quality of life?
That's a very good question. And I can say that one of the things that we say today is we wish we did it also with, we did some form of a comparative study. So there are studies that are being done. It focuses on the same, necessarily the same measures and so forth. And of course, their quality of life is, for everybody, has decreased. So I can't answer this, but I think we will be able, with data that is collected otherwise. We can say that it's more complicated, definitely, because we know that there are many situations with the children with disabilities that other families did not, whether it's accessibility, whether it's, as I said, services that they needed, with the fact that the education system was shut down, but for people in special ed, it's more of a complication and so forth. So I don't want to say that the next war will do a comparative study, because we don't want to have one, but some humor. But anyway, but yeah, so, but there are studies that are being done, generally speaking. So I'm sure we'll be able to induce some information.
Yes. Okay. Thank you, Donna.